Good afternoon, everyone. This is Perry Mixter speaking to you from Charlotte, North Carolina, the national headquarters for Power to Give. We are delighted that you're here today. Appreciate your time on this Friday afternoon. We hope that the next hour will be of use to you as we go through the topic of finding new donors and effective project design. We are excited for having you with us today. We have a lot to go over, and hopefully, we'll give you a lot of information about posting projects and effectively conveying your information and your project impact to your donors. So we're excited about that. The agenda for today is fairly straightforward. We're going to give you some up-to-date topics and information on online giving, tell you a little bit about where we are with Power to Give. But we'll spend most of our time talking about project design, how to tell a great story using crowdfunding, how to find donors, and how to get to them and to send the right message. And we've with over 2,200 projects on the system to date, we've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't on the system. So we'll be sharing some things we've learned. One of the things if you haven't done one of these webinars before, this is a broadcast only webinar, so we'll be speaking but not hearing you. And the way to communicate back to me is using the question function on the webinar. So I'll be um, I'll be pausing every once in a while to look at the questions that have been posted. As I go through the presentation, if something strikes you as odd or funny or want more information, please ask a question and I'll pause and get to those occasionally throughout the broadcast. And I always get this question, and yes, we do have a slide PDF format available for you to download. I'll give you the link for that file at the end of the webinar. You can always contact me at perry.mixter@artsandscience.org. Be happy to answer any questions specifically you have. One of the things we're seeing on crowdfunding in the last couple of years is the evolution of the online donor. If you look at this graphic, only 4% of people in 2001 were giving online, and they were giving little bit more. The average gift was $162. Today, over 65% of individuals contributing to nonprofit organizations are giving online, and this has become much more ubiquitous throughout our country, and it seems to be becoming very well accepted. The other graphic that we're particularly intrigued about is this one, showing year over year online giving trends. And this is each of these months is a comparison of the current year to the previous year. And you can see how giving trends take place throughout the year. You see a fairly big spike at the beginning of the year, a little spike up at the end of the year. But one of the things that really caught our eye is the graphic over here on the right, where you see the overall giving has actually increased about 1.8% over the previous year. But online giving since 2013 in 2013 increased 12% over the previous year. So we think online giving is coming into its own. And we see a lot of things happening. We just saw something down in Charleston, the Day of Giving. I think that was done this week throughout the country. Crowdfunding is one way of reaching donors online. It doesn't answer all the questions, but it really is an effective tool to share your message and share your projects. So we're excited about the prospect that this has for all of us in the arts, and we hope that by now most of you have posted a project, maybe 30, 45 days into that project, and things have stalled out a little bit. We're going to try to help you along and give you some pointers about what we've learned. Here's some other crowdfunding facts for you to digest. The average posting number of days each project is active on Power to Give is 67. That's about 2/3 of the total 90-day window. So you can see that many projects get funded before the 90 days. Uh, what we take away from this is that the 30-day mark is a pretty pivotal point for you, in that it could be the halfway point for most projects. So be thinking about that. Another interesting crowdfunding statistic is that if you can get your project past the 30% mark in terms of its goal towards the budget, you have a far greater chance of being successful in total fundraising. What they say is if you get past 30 to 35%, you are almost you're 90% sure to get to 90 or 100% of funding. So what we've learned on that is if you can prime the pump with some key donors to get you started, get you to the 30% mark, then you can use secondary networks and other donors to get you to the 100% mark. We've also found that crowdfunding, the average on our system is $4,700 per projects. So if you've got a $10,000 project on the system, that is pretty aggressive. That's a lot of individual donors to secure. We found that folks are very successful with modest budgetary projects. So things in the $3,000 to $4,000 to $5,000 range, especially if you're new to this, is probably the way to go. Um, Again, not to overwhelm you with facts, but if you can start with 35% or more as you launch your project, if you have people lined up to make those contributions, you're far more likely to be fully funded on Power to Give and crowdfunding. So these are just some other statistics that we've experienced. Some results to date for Power to Give around the country. We're now in 24 communities around the country, mostly in the Midwest and the Southeast, but we are expanding nationwide. We have just crossed the $6 million mark for raising funds for 2,200 projects, and that represents over 25,000 individual donations. The average gift on Power to Give is around $130, but the most frequent gift is more towards the $50 mark. And as I said, the average project is around $4,700. In Charlotte, we keep track of how many donors are new to the organizations that they're supporting, and that statistic is holding steady at 45%. So it's clear that we are not cannibalizing a significant amount of existing donors. The projects here in Charlotte continue to attract first-time donors, and that's very exciting. That's what we want to see. We've also found that nationally, about 35% of the donors to Power to Give have given more than one gift. So we're pleased with that result as well. People are finding that this system is a convenient and useful way to give to projects they're passionate about. Whoops. Here's another chart that again supports what I said earlier. You can see this is the percentage of funding for all the projects that have been posted on the Charlotte site, and you can see the numbers at the different levels. So, for instance, here starting on the left, about 4% of the projects in Charlotte had zero funding. About 22% or so had 1 to 10%. And then 10 to 30% of funding was around the 10% mark. So you can see that there's a significant number at the lower end, maybe about 20% total, 25% total. But then you see that the percentages go way down in the 30 to 99% range. Very few projects are funded at those levels. And then we have 45% of the projects in Charlotte are fully funded. This is tracking about standard for crowdfunding platforms around the country. Every crowdfunding platform has projects that don't entirely get funded, but you can see that if you can get past the 30% mark, you're much more likely to be fully funded. Again, something to think about. How do donors come? Well, again, as we talked about in our initial training sessions, your site host, which is your local arts council or Office of Cultural Affairs, or the organization that is sponsoring Power to Give, promotes the brand in your community. They're going to help get the word out that there are projects on the system and that people should be driven to those. Again, by putting links to Power to Give on their websites, as these organizations have done. But again, they're going to be promoting the brand. Uh, critical key element, as we have said throughout all of our training, is that the donors only come to your projects if you promote that project. Posting the project on Power to Give and just sitting back and watching the results is not going to get you any. It's not a viable strategy. And so we want to help you work through the strategies for promoting your projects from day 1 through day 90. It takes some getting used to, crowdfunding does. It is not your typical, for those of us who've been in development and marketing, it's an atypical opportunity. We have a lot of organizations, especially smaller organizations, that tried it once and say, "Oh, it's not for us," or "Our constituents don't use social media." Well, I think, and again, I'm at the risk of being uh, incorrect. I'm pretty confident that your constituents do use social media. They may not be Twitter fans, but I'm sure most people use Facebook. Everybody uses email, and that's what we're talking about: getting the word out. Um, Crowdfunding really does require new thinking, and not just posting a project saying we need money. It's designing a project that engage the reader and that are unique. Being brief and compelling is really critical. We're going to kind of walk you through some of those issues today. There are two URLs that I hope, or two types of URLs that Power to Give has. The first one is the permanent URL that always points to your projects that your organization posts. And this never changes. If you don't have any projects posted, it goes to a blank page on Power to Give. But if you embed this in your website or on your email signature line, when someone clicks on that, it's always going to point to your projects on Power to Give. And in that way, you can use Power to Give, your page on Power to Give, as an extension of your web presence. Your donors should not have to search through the host site platform and look at all the other projects. They can always go to your projects. We encourage you to have a strategy of embedding that in all of your communications with your donors in every way possible. There are, however, project-specific URLs. There is a URL that always points to a specific project that you have. These not necessarily expire, but they will point to that project forever, and it will not point to any other project. So once your project expires or is done on Power to Give, people can still look at it, but there's no way to donate to that or to your organization. So this is the URL you should use for specific project promotions, so that if your board members are saying, let's say you're a board member of the Blumenthal Performing Arts Center here, you want to promote Arts for All at the mountaintop, you would copy the URL that's in this at the top of this page and send it to the donors and say, hey, I have up until May 6th to get this funded, and then it expires. That's going to get them right to that project, so they don't even have to go through your list of active projects. Just two strategies to think about in using our website pointers. So, what to post? We cover this also in the basic training, but really think about those things that excite you, energize you. Um, and the great thing about Power to Give is you can fund almost anything. It can be equipment, it can be a capital need, it can be scholarships, it can be project-based, program-based, but make it inspirational. Be creative. If it's something mundane like a vacuum cleaner, we've had one theater company here in town fund a vacuum cleaner of all things. They made a very hilarious project out of it and got it funded instantaneously. Anything having to do with children, we find to be very, very dynamic and impactful on Power to Give. Again, it can be almost anything, but make it inspirational. And I think the lesson we've learned beyond the subject matter is the fact that it needs to be memorable, it needs to be catchy, compelling photo and video, or at least those that make you want to learn more. Tying donor benefits directly to the project impact is critical. For instance, a $25 gift will help us provide music lessons for an at-risk youth for a week. Those kind of benefits get people excited, and they feel that they are actually contributing to a specific activity. This little graphic here is from a project here in Charlotte. the Carolina Actors Studio Theater wanted to have a professional orchestra for one of their musicals, and the title, and I'll show you the narrative in just another few slides, but they posted this picture of performing cats, and the project threatened to put performing cats in the orchestra pit if we couldn't get funding for professional musicians. It was rather funny. Got it fully funded, worked out very well. Again, first impressions matter. Being creative with the title, make it eye-catching, point us in the right direction here for toe shoes for a ballet company. Project photos. We found, again, this one I find very attractive because the subject fills the frame. You can really see what that individual is doing as opposed to a group shot, and make it a square dimension. Will get you a full showing on that screen. The video, we find that the projects, and this is true throughout crowdfunding, when you have a video associated with your project, it really does dramatically improve the likelihood that you're going to be successful, because you can use that video to tell the story better than any block of text can. And again, we've had people take their cell phones and basically make very, very informal videos, 2 to 3 minute videos, where they interview a participant in the project. And having the donor being able to see that and get kind of peer behind the curtain and see what you're doing is really a critical component. So we encourage you to take the time to make a 30 to 90 second video. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be high production value. Just tell your story. I'm going to pause here. There's a question from Leslie Baker. Will this be available later? Yes, Leslie, we'll have the slide, we're recording this webinar, and it'll be posted on our YouTube channel. If you go to the YouTube site and do a search on Power to Give, we post all of our webinars there that you can watch at any time. We'll also, at the end of this session, give you a link to the slides of this show. Again, this is going back to that the cats project. You can see in these circled areas, they say the first draft of our budget had a pit orchestra comprised of Wynton Marsalis and all of his brothers. Once the accounting department stopped freaking out, they narrowed us down to 3 options: local professional players, our bookkeeper's friend's kids' middle school band, cats. Not the Broadway musical cats, mind you, but actual cats with little instruments in their paws. And then at the bottom it says, the choice is yours. The future is in your hands. But if it doesn't work out, the bookkeeper's friends' kids will be playing, and these kids work for candy. Do the right thing. Again, we find using humor to be an excellent way of communicating with donors. They like that. They like the transparency, and it's fun. Again, in your narrative, make sure you include a very simple budget so the donors can see exactly what they're funding. You don't want to say, we need $5,000 for an orchestra. We need $1,000 for the music director. We need $500 for the bass player, $500 for the guitar player. People like those kind of specifics, so it's completely transparent. Your goal here is to drive action. Okay, this is what you want. You want them to make a transaction and click through to the transaction screen, which we make very, very easy. You want to generate an emotional response and help the audience envision and feel their positive impact. This is what the experts tell us is the most successful way of reaching and creating results. You want to both inform and entertain the reader. So when you're writing your narratives, keep these ideas in mind. If you take your narrative and have someone read it and they don't get emotional or they don't get moved to action, then you need to rewrite it. We find that the storytelling component of Power to Give is really what it's all about, where you can tell the story of your organization. Why is the community better when this project is funded? The bad messages that we see are, please give us money to help us do X, Y, and Z. Help our fundraising on Power to Give. Give because your dollars will be matched. Well, those aren't really compelling reasons to give. However, how about inspiring the next generation of scientists or musicians? Help our choreographer by sharing her vision for the future. Expose fragile neighborhoods to art through murals. These kind of things, these kinds of messages help us communicate what the arts are all about and how we can make a difference in our communities. So again, think about what you're trying to do and then be impactful with it. We have come across really this very simple step checklist for when you're writing your narrative. You want to set the context. You want to set the scene for your audience. What is it? What's the picture? What's the image that you're setting in their mind? What is the problem? And what is the problem in the current context? What is the solution that you are proposing? And what is the impact? How are you going to change people's lives? And then how much do you need? Only then, how much do you need? And what are you going to spend it on? So, context, issue, solution, impact, and ask. Those 5 steps in your narrative really help you get get the people to drive action. And here's an example of what that looks like. So this is a project at our local community school of the arts here in Charlotte. They have a financial aid program that provides about 100 kids with financial aid, which offsets about 90% of the tuition costs. That's the context. The problem is that they have more than 300 individual kids applying for this funding, so they have greater demand than there is ability to fund. The solution that they are providing is that by making the benefits of arts education available to the children, they can make it available to them regardless of their family's finances. And those benefits are greater attendance, greater discipline, all those things we know about. So the impact of this solution is that they can provide, with $10,000, the CSA can provide 120 weekly 30-minute music lessons for children at a cost of just $25 a week. That's the impact. And this is where it really gets interesting because they unitize the ask so that if you want to give $500, you're going to fund one student for a full semester. If you can only give $100, you can do 4 weeks of lessons. Or if you can only do $25, that's going to give the student one lesson for 1 week. Now, I don't know about you, but if I give $25 and know that I'm funding one student's lesson, that to me feels a lot more has a lot more emotional impact than just giving $25 to a $10,000 project. By unitizing the ask, you are creating that emotional impact. So think about your projects in those terms. Can you break it down so that the donor can see exactly what he or she is going to be supporting and what kind of impact that's going to make? Okay, so we've talked about the content of the narrative. Now we're going to start talking about how we're going to get the audiences to find or to understand and appeal to these audiences. And what we encourage you to do is in this 90-day period that your project's active on Power to Give, don't be sending out the same message to the same people. As you all know from junk mail, we get tired of more than a couple reminders. You want to have a steady trickle of communications, but you want to think about 2 to 3 or 4 specific constituencies that you can target with slightly different messages. One message might go to volunteers. Another message might go to seasoned subscribers. There might be a third message that has a different tone that goes to the people that are affiliated with the people who could or are receiving the program or the project that you are funding. So again, think about uh, who will this project speak to, and then identify specific constituencies that you can target. And then, and only then, talk about developing a simple plan. I'll have a slide here in a second that shows you what I'm talking about. What are the top 1 to 3 target groups that you want to engage? Identifying project advocates, people who can speak for you. You know, most of us have a very dynamic executive director, but there might be a board chair, there might be a chairman of the education department, there might be a volunteer. Think about project advocates that you can engage for this 90-day period to help convey your message. What are you trying to get each of those target audiences to do? And why should your target audience care about the project? So again, by developing a simple plan, you can address these issues. And let me show you how. This is a very simple grid that we've developed that starts on the left with the project name. Okay, so we've talked about creating a descriptive, engaging name. And then in this case, it is a 4th of July fireworks concert that the symphony wanted to fund. So the symphony then said, what are the top 3 groups that we want to engage to get this funding? And they identified board members, their young affiliate group, and musicians. So they have their 3 constituent groups, and then they identified the ambassador for each of those, a vice chair for the board, a group co-chair for the young affiliates group, and the lead cellist for the musicians, who happens to be a technology nut and loves the idea of power to give. So each of those then develops a call to action. And each of those, I'm not going to read this in detail because you'll be able to look at this later on, but each of them had a specific action call for each of the audience members. And then what is that message? Is it fun and entertaining? Is it getting your name read? Again, different people respond to different incentives. So think about what that message is for each of those target audiences. And then specifically, how are you going to reach them? Is it a personal appeal with an email? Is it a stand-up at a meeting or a concert? Talk about specific vehicles that you're going to use to communicate the message to them. And then what are the tactics? That's the day-to-day, on day 7, we're going to send out an email to the board. On day 10, we're going to send out a message to the musicians. With 4 days left in the campaign window, we're going to send a message out to everybody telling them that it's time's running out. So again, developing that project promotion plan. I hope it doesn't sound more complicated because it really isn't. It's just developing a strategy that you can follow so that everybody's rowing in the same direction. Again, identifying ambassadors. Again, just a little more detail about this. Creative directors are great. Getting a message from your artistic director is fabulous. The board chair, if there's a curator of a museum that is posting a project, who specifically is going to be carrying that message that will be easy, the best to the people that will. Let me start over again. What is the best person who can generate the best response from each of those constituents? The call to the action. You wanted them to give to the project, right? This is where some people fall down a little bit. They get the average Power to Give project may have 10 to 20 donors. So we're not talking about hundreds of people. But if you can get the first 10 to agree to reach out to their colleagues or to post it on their Facebook wall or to write a testimonial, this is where some of us fall down. We get the gift, but then we don't get those donors to turn around and promote it to their constituents. And that's what's going to get you from that 30% that I was talking about earlier to the 100%. And again, we make those links very easy for the donor. When they make a gift, there are links right there they can click on and generate an email message to their colleagues. You want them to share. So that's kind of where we've seen people fall down. They'll say, oh, I posted this project and I got 5 donors, but I don't know who else to ask. Well, they should be asking those donors to send the word out to their friends and family and keep that running and become viral. That's how it works. That's how we get the 45% new donors for each of our projects. Again, when we think about prospect pools, those of us in development know that the primary networks, again, this is not rocket science, but these are the folks that know and love you, your active supporters, your current donors. And don't worry about cannibalizing. You're not going to cannibalize a $500 annual gift with a $25 Power to Give gift. That would be just silly. So your current donors, let's say you have a long list of Libunts, the past donors. And if you don't know what Libunts is, it's last year, but not this year. Those past donors might be a perfect audience to re-engage with the Power to Give project. So use those Libunt lists to reach out to the other members of the community. Board members, volunteer staff, as you get experienced in Power to Give, you should use the donor pool that you have to send out a message to them to say, hey, we've got to thank you for that first gift, and now I've got an even better project here. We want you to find out more about it. Everybody has affinity groups, teachers and parents. All those folks should be your primary networks, those folks that know and love you. It's again where a lot of us don't have the connections and wonder how we can get them. It's these secondary networks. This is where it takes a little bit of creativity. Friends and friends of your primary networks, board members. Um, we found this sounds really simple, but come up if you have a staff, generate 2 to 3 power to give ideas. Go to your board at the next meeting and say, here are 3 ideas we thought about using Power to Give for, and have the board decide which one sounds best to them. Then turn right around and say, okay, we need you to commit to sharing this with 20 of your friends. Easy. Can't, I mean, how hard is it for them to copy and paste email addresses in a message? And we have templates. You should have access to templates, email templates, and other things that can help you they can fill in the blanks and they're off to the races. Um, Ask your supporters to post their projects on the Facebook timeline. I mean, that's instant. I mean, I have 500 friends on Facebook. I can't believe it. But if I post a timeline up there, everybody around the country is going to see the fact that I'm passionate about a particular project. So that's a very simple way to get the word out. Giving circles, a new thing in some communities, another thing to think about. We have many, many means of messaging here. So each of these takes a different strategy. And for those of you who are new to social media, this is a great opportunity for you to really kind of get your footing and understand what it can do for you. Some work for some and some don't. But here's some ideas. Email campaigns. Again, this is a message that one of our organizations had suggested language for a Power to Give message from the board members. So they just copy and paste this copy into an email message to their friends. So again, you set it up and they can tee it off. Facebook postings. Again, as I said, uh, uh, the system automatically generates this kind of image. You see the photo from this project, and I can put in something personal about this. And when people click on that, it's going to go right to that project description page. Couldn't be easier to make that connection. Twitter feeds. Now, not everybody's Twitterific. I must say that I'm a little skeptical about it, but some people live and die by it. So don't overlook it. We have a lot of successful organizations having great effectiveness with Twitter feeds. We've had some very creative uses of in-person gatherings. This is a flyer for a local organization here that had a $35 advance program get together, and $10 of that $35 was a gift card that they had the donors they gave out at the event, and they had laptops and pads around that people could make contributions to their projects on Power to Give. So $10 of that $35 ticket helped them with their project. So again, being creative. And again, ambassador activities. If people are having cookouts or get-togethers at their home, they can promote very easily the Power to Give project. Again, we don't want you to over communicate, so be thoughtful about how you design your email campaigns. Again, this is just a suggested sample. One set at launch. You might have a message from the executive director to announce the fact that this exists, that there are, let's say, there are matching funds in your local community, and the call to action is to donate and to spread the word. At 30 days, perhaps the board chair can send another message telling the impact of what the staff is doing, and be a part of our family. We want you to come join us in this activity and learn about what we're doing. With 7 days left in the campaign, your artistic or program director might send a story about how this project in the past has changed lives and tell an anecdote about experiences with kids. And that's the call. The call to action there is to connect with the recipients. And with 24 hours left in the campaign, the executive director comes back and says, we're so close. Now's the time, if you're going to do it, to donate and spread the word. And again, those kind of targeted and thoughtful campaign, it just has to take a little bit of advanced design to come up with it. And this is where you use that project-specific URL to get people to go right to that project. So within the system, as I said, the donors, once they make their gift, they have the capability of sharing that project with their friends. And they click on, in this case, the email icon, and they get a pop up which is populated with the URL. And they can simply suggest, add email messages or email addresses in the to field, and it goes out, and the system takes care of that for them. Using Facebook, using that project specific URL, which is, if you click on this Facebook icon, it's going to generate something on your timeline on your computer. It'll come up, and here I've written what a great project by NC Dance Theater on Power to Give. I supported it, and so should you. That goes to all of my friends and associates. Using Twitter, again, not for everybody, but this is terrific for last minute campaign. This is a screenshot of, they had this cast organization had someone who was every 30 minutes up until the deadline was posting what was left on the system, and generated a huge amount of volume for them. Again, this can be tied to national Power to Give posts. We have our tag is @PowerToGive, so you can put that in your Twitter feed, and it'll be picked up by the national promotional campaign. We have a new feature, relatively new feature, some of you may not be familiar with, but donors do have the opportunity to post testimonials through the system, and we encourage you to encourage your donors to post testimonials on the projects that they support. It's been a fantastic success, and encourage you to do that as well. Media coverage always helps. Traditional standard stuff. We've had a lot of great success with this supporting, and this gets back to the site host in your local community, supporting you with activities and matching funds. We make a great hullabaloo when new matching funds come online here in Charlotte. Generates a lot of activity. We're also we've also instituted a quarterly newsletter for Power to Give donors. We don't, at the Arts and Science Council, our agreement with the organizations here in Charlotte is that we would never solicit the Power to Give donors for an annual gift to the Arts and Science Council. However, we do take their emails and we send them out every quarter, an updated list of active projects on Power to Give, just to encourage them to go back and visit the Power to Give site and find a project that they're excited about. So again, talk with your local site host as to the promotion that could be most useful to you in promoting your projects. Just a couple of slides here. We've seen, we did some Excel spreadsheet analysis of when gifts come in. And as I said, the average Power to Give project is, if you have 10 or 15 gifts, that's about right. You're not, the most we've seen is 30 to 45 gifts for the larger campaigns. But we've kind of tracked the timing of those, and you can see that there are a couple of different strategies that are kind of naturally occurring. This is one where you push it hard at the beginning. Then you stop and coast for about 3 months or 2 months or so, and then you have another push towards the end of the campaign. So that's one strategy that we've seen. We've also seen where big gifts. This is a project with a lot of small gifts, but you can see that they had. If you go down the left-hand side, they had a $2,000 gift, a $1,000 gift, another $1,000 gift, and those generated encouraged other smaller gifts. So again, you can see how that, especially if that donor turned around and told his friends and colleagues how great this was. Doesn't have to say how much he gave, but can certainly be an influence in people's giving habits. And here's one. Not sure I want to encourage this strategy because this group obviously waited until the very end of the campaign, but they got it done. They launched it on the 5th of June, and then you had a whole bunch of activity at the middle of July, and by July 9th, it was fully funded. So not sure I want to encourage that, but certainly it is a strategy to say, hey, our campaign is running out. They raised $4,000 in 5 days, so you can do that too. Here's another thing that we're seeing happening, especially for those of us with larger organizations that might have development and marketing departments. We see marketing and development not exactly coming to. Let me back up. We just don't want to see silos. Sometimes the social media function is in the marketing area and not in development. So the people that are running the Power to Give campaign don't have control over the social media channels in that organization. We really encourage you to come together as a staff to brainstorm about how to use Power to Give most effectively. That's going to be the most effective way to utilize the resources you have. It's got to be, and again, we want all to be working together. Now, for the long run, engaging your board is really what it's all about. And I think I mentioned this earlier. Again, share the plans, ask them to personally promote it, provide the templates that we have, easy to adapt and use for yourself, and then solicit their ideas for potential future ones, future projects, and get individual board members to help you be ambassadors. So engage your organization to make Power to Give truly effective. Here's some tips that we solicited from the Charlotte users recently. Again, reaching out to donors by email to participate. We think the participation is really critical. If you can invite your donors to Power to Give to come and see exactly what their dollars are doing, it's going to really bring them into your campaign and into your family. Um, so the second one, we found that personal emails targeted to specific donors are much more successful than a mass mailing. We really want you to think hard about using mass mailing to send the message out for Power to Give. Try to be as targeted as you can. Again, some great ideas here. We make a point of properly stewarding the new donors through Power to Give. I think in the training sessions that we have you go through initially, we talk about the 3 opportunities that Power to Give provides you in involving those new donors. The first one happens when they make their gift. They get an automatic email. Hopefully they get another personal message from you. And then a second opportunity to reach them is when the campaign on Power to Give is over. You can write them and say, hey, thanks for being a part of the successful effort. We've raised X dollars using Power to Give, and we're excited to and look forward to implementing this program in the fall. And then when the project comes to fruition in the fall, you can contact them a third time to say, hey, come down here and see what your dollars that you gave in the spring, what kind of impact they're having. Boy, I'll tell you, if I was a donor and somebody did that for me, I'd feel very much a part of that organization. So again, just some strategies we've learned. You can't thank them enough. I got this note because I gave a $10 a gift as part of this training process to a local organization, and I got a personal handwritten letter from the manager. Now that takes a lot of time and effort, and kudos to Kay Johnson for doing that. But it really made me feel part of her family. And I was just doing it as part of my job, but I do love the idea of the choir school, and certainly think much higher of them now that I've gotten this letter of thanks. But again, they've begun the stewardship process for me. I'm in. I'm a big advocate for what they're doing. A couple of other tips. Think about having an ongoing strategy for using Power to Give. There may be certain times of the year when it's not appropriate to have a project, but we like the idea of you designing an annual campaign where you have one project per quarter. And when the project that you have up gets close to funding, then put the second one up. Send the donors to those as well. It might be slightly different. The first one might be a project based. The second one might be more for equipment. So again, you can have different audiences for the different projects. I don't think we promote this enough either. But if you go to any of the Power to Give sites and look under projects, there's a second link that says completed projects. If you click on that completed projects list, you can see all of the projects that have taken place over time in that particular market. And you can do a search on the particular kinds of projects you're interested in and see what kind of successes or non-successes have taken place. See what narratives work, see what pictures work. Again, a tremendous resource. We have over 2,000 projects now throughout the system, so you can find just about anything on the Power to Give sites. Great research tool. Using the Power to Give data that we provide, again, this is in the project dashboard, but you can pull a Excel spreadsheet of all your donors' information: name, address, phone number, the time and the date and the time of their gift, their name, address, phone number, and how much was matched. Again, this should be imported into your donor database management system. But again, use these to reach out to them when the time is right. But again, think about, as you look through that list, how many of those donors are new to you, and how are you going to communicate to them differently than the folks that have been your longtime supporters? Again, things to keep in mind. I have a number of online resources. Again, I don't expect you to write this down, but we'll have this available to you on the slides. But the YouTube channel that we have on for Power to Give, if you do a search, go to YouTube and do a search on Power to Give. All of the webinars that we provide are recorded. The most recent one for each of the kind topics are posted there. We have some that are specific to different markets, but we do have national ones like this one as well. There's some great resources for nonprofits, the nonprofithub.org. Beth Cantor's blog is a great blog to talk about how to use social media, how to get started. The Arts Marketing website is terrific for ongoing marketing. The Nonprofit Technology for Good is a great website for social media. And then we have the Council on Nonprofits social media site is also terrific. So again, I came up with this list by just spending about 20 minutes on Google. You can find your own set of listings, but there's tons and tons of resources out there. If you're also, if a paid resource is something called lynda.com. They have sessions on crowdfunding and fundraising online. It's lynda.com. It's a paid service, but well worth it. So in summary, just to wrap up, we're about done. Again, time to post any questions you have. I'm on my second to last slide here, so ask away. But in summary, design compelling projects, institutionalize Power to Give throughout your organization, up and down the chain. Make sure everybody's aware of it and engaged. You're just not doing it by yourself. Develop simple but effective promotional campaigns. I think we've given you the tools to do that. Use your primary and discover your secondary networks. Use the embedded Power to Give features to leverage donors to find new projects and to bring back non-renewed donors. Okay. Learn about using social media and apply it to your projects. And then once you've got that gift, engage those donors and make them feel part of your family. This is the link, the short link for the presentation slides. If you type that bit.ly link into your browser, it should take you to a Dropbox download. That is the number 1 NP5D capital PK. Tested that just before the session, and it should work. If you have trouble with that or you can't get to it, just send me an email at perry.mixter@artsandscience.org, and I can get you that slideshow. But again, that about wraps up our presentation for today. I hope you found this to be a useful hour. And as always, we at Power to Give are here to help you both individually and corporately to vet any ideas that you have, any wild and crazy ideas you might have on using Power to Give. But again, you also have resources with your local site host. Your site host administrator is standing by to help you with ideas that work for your community. We thank you for your time today and hope that you continue to find Power to Give to be a useful tool in your fundraising and marketing arsenal to reach both existing and new donors. Again, thank you for your time today. Go out and have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Power to Give.